Things like knots, cracks in your wood, gaps between boards, all of these things can cause a lot of problems when building furniture. So in today's video, I'm going to share 5 different ways that you can fix these issues to make your final pieces beautiful. Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Bent's Woodworking. I am Jason with Bent's Woodworking. Today we're going to talk about 5 different ways that you can fix knots and cracks and all these different little voids that happen in your projects. And I'm going to show you a bunch of different items that you can use, something from as simple as sawdust that you create in your shop, all the way up to using a knot filler gun. So we're going to talk about all those things, and hopefully you'll find this information useful. And most of today's video is all going to be very close up, so you can see these gaps and voids and really get a good idea of what I'm talking about and see a good demonstration of each product. I've got a few various products here, and I've also got some different pieces of wood. And the reason I have these different pieces of wood is because each one I'm going to demonstrate a different thing. Anywhere from small gaps in between boards from a glue up to small little holes or voids or cracks. Same thing on this one. You've got a couple little cracks up here at the end, and then I'm going to work my way up to something like a large knot or a large gap like you see right here. Any of the products that I use in this video, I will leave affiliate links and or links to the company's website in this case down below if you would like to find out more information about them and or purchase these items. The techniques that I'm going to talk about and demonstrate today is 1, using just standard wood filler, 2, creating your own wood filler using dust or fine shavings that you have in your shop from that particular species of wood. I'm going to talk about using things like CA glue to fill voids and gaps. I'm going to discuss using epoxy, however, in this video I will not demonstrate it because it's pretty straightforward, and I'll talk about that more once I get to it. And the final thing that I'm going to show you, which will be the last item, is going to be using this knot filler by a company called Rangate, and it will be used to fill the larger void that you see on this last board. Right here, what you'll see is this little gap. We don't want that, and that's a pretty common mistake, especially when you're starting early on. Most people have probably used a standard wood filler. In this case, I'm going to use one from a company called Timbermate, and these are 2 pieces of red oak, and so I'm actually going to use the red oak Timbermate for this application. It is essentially a paste, like you see in there, and you just put it in whatever cracks, and you just work it in. And because this is the same color of the wood, or fairly close to the same color of the wood, it's going to be almost not even noticeable at all once I apply it. And there's really no specific science to it, in my opinion. I kind of just like to place it on the crack that I want and kind of work it in a little bit so it gets down in there. And then obviously I'll allow it to sit for a little while so it can dry. And then when I go and sand it, it will be nice and clean. So as you can see, it's already gone ahead and filled that hairline crack, and you can now no longer see it, and it blends the 2 pieces of wood very, very nicely. Next technique I'm going to show you is making your own wood filler using some sawdust that you have from that species of wood. Here you can see I actually like to keep small amounts in small bags or containers specifically for this reason. And then obviously you're just using some regular glue. And I've got this little crack in my board right here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my own wood filler to go ahead and fill that. This is also an excellent technique for the last demonstration I showed you where I was using actual wood filler on hairline cracks. This will also work great for those. The way that I do this is really pretty simple. I just take a small bead of glue just like this, run it across the line, whatever I'm trying to fill, put in there real good. Then I'm going to take a liberal amount of the sawdust that I want. I prefer to have more probably than I really need, just because it makes it a little bit easier, and it does waste some, but I create enough sawdust to where it really doesn't matter. So all I'm doing is I'm working that sawdust into that crack, and what it's doing is it's mixing with the glue. And the reason why this is so beneficial is because if you've ever tried to stain, obviously you're probably not going to stain walnut, but if you ever have tried to stain, say, pine or oak or something like that, and your stain hits a spot where there's still residual glue, the stain will not take. This takes care of that problem if done correctly. So this will take the stain much better because the stain is actually mixing with the sawdust instead of the glue. This is what it looks like. I've got it filled, plenty of sawdust there in order to mix with whatever, say, stain that I was going to use. Otherwise, it just fills in that spot, and this will darken up nicely once you put some sort of finish on it, whether it's a clear coat or anything, and it will blend very, very nicely. So on the same piece of wood on the other end, I've got a little knot that has some open areas around it. And so for a job like this, the first thing that I'm going to reach for is more than likely some CA glue. This CA glue is from a company called Starbond, and this is the actual CA glue itself. And what this is right here is an aerosol can, which is a spray activator, which drastically accelerates the drying time almost instantaneously. This technique is pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my CA glue and I'm going to start moving around the edge here. And if you can see in the video, as you start to put it in there, it starts to seep down into that crack. And then right there, you can see a small bubble is forming. Now it popped. And it looks like a couple more bubbles are coming up. What that means is that that stuff is working its way down into that knot. So as the bubbles come up, I like to pop them and then see if it's going to go ahead and fill again. If it doesn't, I might just dab a little bit more on there. Now, here's where the activator comes in. So let's say it's a fairly deep one, or even in this case, it's not too deep. If it's fairly deep and it hasn't actually filled in the hole itself, I can spray this activator and it starts to dry instantaneously. And the benefit to that is so that hole has now opened up. I can take some more CA glue, dab it down in there, and now I'm just having to fill the area that does not have any glue in it. I'm going to put some spray activator on it again, and it's drying right now. I can see that I'm still below the surface a little bit in this area here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put another layer on. And I'm watching it as it dries. And I like to let that sit for maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and then I'm going to go ahead and sand it down flush. I can go ahead and bring you in closer again now that it's all sanded down. And as you can see, it has now filled that small hole. And so it just looks a lot better, obviously, now than having that hole or that gap right around that knot. So using the CA glue really does well. You'll actually notice that the clear tends to take on the color of whatever wood that you're doing, which is nice because then it will blend very nicely. This next demonstration is also going to be use of CA glue, but I'm going to show you a different option with the Starbond CA glue. So what you see right here is just a crack in the wood. And so for this, because it's on walnut, I'm going to use CA glue and the activator, but the CA glue that I'm going to use is this black medium thick CA glue that they make. And they do carry this in a couple of different colors. So the application for this is exactly the same. I'm just going to take it and I'm going to run it down this crack because this is the crack that I want to fill. And I don't know if you're able to see it or if I'm close enough in the video, but as I'm pouring it, it's starting to seep down into that crack, and that's good. That's what we want. Once I feel like I have a liberal amount that I actually need to accomplish the filling that I would like, spray activator, and it dries instantaneously. Now what I can do is go ahead and sand this, and you'll get to see what the difference is from that crack before and then after it's been filled with the black CA glue. So I've got it sanded down. I'll bring it in nice and close. And as you can see, it's filled that crack very nicely and looks great with the black with that walnut. Now that's been 3 of the 5 techniques, and then obviously with the Starbond, I showed you a couple of different options that you can get from that company in terms of depending on the wood that you're working on and how to go ahead and fill different things. The last 2 techniques are going to be using epoxy or using something like this, which is essentially a hot glue gun with colored hot glue. With either of these techniques, this is what I'm going to reach for when I have something serious like a large knot like this, which I'll bring in close so you can see it better. This is a pretty serious void in this piece of wood. It does not go through all the way, which is nice. If it did go through all the way, something that I would do, because I'm going to use something a little more aggressive to fill it, is I would put a piece of tape back here and possibly even on the side if there was a gap there. But with something like this, I'm not going to use the CA glue because you'd use so much of it to try to fill it. It would probably just take a little bit longer, so I want something that's going to be a little bit more robust. So let's go ahead and talk about the other 2 options. As I stated before, I'm not actually going to show you pouring the epoxy or anything, so you would just use the epoxy like you would anything else. You'd take whatever the mix ratio is, you would mix it up in small amounts, and then you would pour it into this hole here, and you would allow it to cure, which the cure time is going to take a pretty long time depending on how severe the crack itself or the knot is in general. There are a couple other options that you can do in terms of epoxy. You can buy the double syringe quick set epoxy just from about any home store, and you can squirt that in there as well, and it will mix while it's coming out of the tubes. The only thing I don't like about those is that they are pretty much a one-time use, and then you have to get rid of them because what ends up happening is the stuff mixes inside of the tube, and if you're not like good about trying to get it changed out and all this other madness, it doesn't matter, but it's an option. So the technique that I'm going to demonstrate is another really good technique, and it's something that I just recently started doing and got to recently try out, and I'm a really big fan of it, and it's using hot glue from this gun to fill this void, and then you use this basically pressure block that you would push down, forcing all of that to get down into the crack and basically leveling out the top. Then you will take this cutter that they provide and you will move down and you'll basically just skim the top off, and then you would sand just like you would any of the others. This is a great technique for something that is this serious. I'm going to go ahead and bring you in close so I can show you the entire process, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up the video. So the first step in this process was obviously to turn the gun on, let it heat up. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes to get fully heated up, and once it's heated, it operates just like any glue gun. And again, I'm using black because the most common wood that I like to work with is walnut, so I just think that the color scheme of those 2 were great. You can also get other colors like brown or any other color that you might want from the company. Once you start squeezing the trigger, and you're basically filling this knot with this hot glue. And it tells you in the directions that you want to make sure that you put a liberal amount, because a lot of this is going to end up getting pushed in to the knot itself, which is what you want. Once I've applied the glue to the knot, I'm now going to take my block and I'm going to press down and give pressure. And what that's allowing it to do is to push that glue down into the knot itself. Now, I will probably let this sit anywhere from 30 to 60 seconds just to make sure that the glue actually sets up before I start cutting it. The drying time depends on the severity of the knot. So if it's something that's really, really deep and you're using a lot, you might need to give it 1 to 2 minutes or something around there. I'm going to take my cutter and I'm going to start at one end, and I'm just going to work my way across and cut it off. So it comes out really clean. And now I'll go ahead and sand it and really blend everything together and show you the finished product. I'll go ahead and wipe it down real quick, just kind of give you an idea of maybe what the dark would look like on a finished piece, or once you have put some finish on it. So as you can see right there, the black blends in really well, and I've taken care of that large knot. I really enjoy this technique because I am a huge fan of the way that the black looks with the walnut and mixes in. And when I have large knots to fill in the future, this is definitely going to be one of my main ways to move forward. So that was 5 different techniques that you can use on your future projects to help take care of some of these issues like we highlighted in the video. Like I said before, I will leave links to all this stuff if you want to go down and take a look at what the price is on each one of these, or again, learn some more information about them. That's going to do it for this video. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you have questions, as always, leave them in the comments section down below, or go over to Instagram at Bent's Woodworking and follow me there and shoot me a DM, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that you might have. I look forward to the next video, and I'll see everybody then.